Guys, what's going on? This is Travis P11. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. Well guys, about a year ago I picked up a Glock at my local pawn shop. That would be SS Pawn in Lexington, Nebraska. And what I purchased was a Glock 81. Well, where is it, you might ask? You're staring at it right here. Now, for a lot of people that don't know this, Glock has actually been manufacturing a combat-style knife for the Austrian Army for about 30 years now. This is the Glock Model 81, as I mentioned before. You can also pick up the Glock Model 78, and that model does not have the serrations on the top of the blade. I wanted the serrations simply for the utility behind the knife and just the overall cool look, I guess you could say. Now, again, I did pay 20 bucks for the knife, which is a pretty fair price. If you look around on Amazon, you can buy them brand new for $29.99. Now the blade itself is a little bit shinier than usual because I do keep a thin coating of CLP on it. We'll talk about that in a second, why I actually do that. Specs on the knife, we are looking at an overall length of 6.5 inches. I'm sorry, the blade length is 6.5 inches. The knife length is 11 inches. The weight is 7.1 ounces. If you happen to get the G78, that again is the field knife without the serrations, you are looking at 7.3 ounces. Now, a little bit about the blade itself, because that's one of the most important parts of the knife. It is a phosphate-treated clip point blade made of 1095 spring steel, and it has a hardness rating of 55 on the Rockwell hardness scale. And again, I'm not a pro knife reviewer. I'm a bit of a knife noob. I mean, even the names of some of the parts, sometimes I don't get it straight, but I can tell you a good knife when I see one. And having a year to play around with this knife, I can tell you just kind of my thoughts about it and what I think about it now. But you do have a high-strength steel in the blade. That is one pro about it. It can take a lot of abuse, but because of the material it's made out of, the spring steel and the phosphate coating, it does have a low corrosion resistance, and so I do keep a thin coating of CLP in it to prevent the blade from rusting out. It does actually have some Glock markings. See if we can get these to show off on camera. There we go. You've got the Glock stamping, Austria Model 81. Now, just to kind of let you know, if you look out there, and I'll show a picture of this in the presentation here, there is a round Glock logo that were used on some of the original Glock 81 and Glock 78 knives. Those are starting to kind of become collectibles. If you look around on eBay, you're looking at around $40, $50 for one of those. So they do bring a little bit of a premium. I mean, there were quite a few of them made, so I wouldn't say that they're exactly rare. But it's one of those things, if you're a knife collector, you might want to consider trying to find one that's got the round Glock stamping. It's one of the original, well, not the original, but one of the earlier runs of the Model 78. We'll talk about the sheath here in just a little bit. One thing that I really do like about the knife is it does keep a very deadly, very, very sharp edge on it. Very easy to put an edge on. It does hold well. I basically bought this just kind of as an all-around beater knife, I guess you could say, something to maybe throw in the gear bag when I go to the range. I also like to use it when I'm working outside, not only for the self-defense practicality, but the fact that the serrations on the top, which are actually fairly sharp. I mean, they're almost like a crisscross diamond pattern up on the top. They do work well to cut through light branches, and I do appreciate that when I'm doing some outdoors work. I could maybe see this as a bit of a camping knife for you. I mean, it is a very thin blade, and we'll kind of talk about that in a little bit, why the knife looks the way that it does, because it is just a slightly different design from maybe what you're used to seeing. A few other pros about it is that the handle, it is a good sized handle. I've got, I could say, medium sized hands, and I could easily get another finger on here if I had to. No problems holding on to it. The material is not overly grippy. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if dudes are stippling these as we speak, as they do to their Polymer frames. It is made of the same polymer as the Glock pistols, and it does have a good balance. I mean, this is a fairly dense, hard plastic, and it does balance well in the hand. It doesn't feel overly front heavy. I mean, it is easy to manipulate and use if you need to, and having that generous amount of space to grip the handle definitely makes it safe for you to use. You know, you can use it safely as long as you are careful when you're out in the field using it. Let's see, what else do we need to know about it? Oh yeah, a little bit about the handguard. Okay, the design of the handguard, it does have a curve into it, and the reason why is because it functions as a bottle opener, which we'll test here in just a little bit, and also the original design of this knife was one that was made as a bayonet for the Austrian Army. Okay, so let's go ahead and verify that bottle opener capability, because that is very important to people that go camping. There you go, that has been verified. It does function as a bottle opener. Another really cool feature of this knife that I like is the fact that you can take this cap off the bottom of the handle, and the original design of this this knife was to be used as a bayonet. I'll talk about that in a moment. But you could attach this knife to a stick if you wanted to make a spear out of it, because it does function as a survival knife, and they had, you know, a few useful features integrated into it for that purpose. And again, it does have the curved handguard up on the top, and that would be that does allow the knife itself to mount to a bayonet mount on a Steyr AUG or Steyr AUG or Steyr AUG, however you want to pronounce it. Rifle. And that is kind of where the history of this this knife comes into play. Back in the mid-1970s, when the Austrian army was adopting the Steyr AUG bullpup rifle for the military, for their military, they were looking for a bayonet, so they put an all-call out there, and several companies came forward with different bayonet designs, and Glock decided to go ahead and just try it and see what they could do, and they made one up. At the time, Glock had been manufacturing some home consumer products, products made from polymer, steel, and so on. So Gaston Glock used his knowledge of polymer and design and came up with the Model 78 originally, and then the Model 81 shortly after. And mounting it to the bullpup rifle itself, it was a fairly simple setup. You just simply would take off the end cap and it would plug on the end and lock into place, and that's how they would use it as the bayonet for the Austrian army. So overall use, it's been a very handy knife. It's been very durable. It's held up well. I've had no issues with it at all. Let's examine the sheath here for just a little bit. It is made out of the same polymer as the Glock firearms and the handle. Now I don't know if this is the same polymer used in the current, you know, Gen 5 Glocks, or if that polymer mix has changed, but it is a very rigid, sturdy polymer, and I think it will hold up to years and years of use. You know, you could put this on a belt loop if you needed to, or use it with a belt if you wanted to, or a MOLLE attachment. It does lock into place so it doesn't go anywhere. You also have just your little loop down here for an attachment string. I suppose if you wanted to tie it around your leg, you could for a little more stability. Then you also have the drain hole in the bottom for moisture. When you lock into place, the only real con that I see about this knife is a lot of knives I like to be able to pull them out with one hand and you know, have them ready to go essentially. With this clip is very, very sturdy, which this thing's, it's not going anywhere. I mean, you're going to be set to go. But I usually have to hold on to it and hold on to the sheath with one hand and flick it up, or have to kind of pull and flick it or manipulate it so that the blade will come out. And so it does, again, securely lock into place, but it's one of those things where you might want to just double check and make sure that this is the kind of design that you want to take with you out into the field. But again, for $30, you know, it is really hard to beat what you get, or even less than 30 bucks if you can find them used. There's quite a few of these popping up on eBay also. And like I mentioned, don't forget to check out the Glock 78 or the G78 knife, which is the model that does not have the serrations. But again, for me, I wanted the utility portion behind it, and so that's why I decided to go with the model with the serrations. So overall, after a year of use and abuse, and it saw a lot of use out in the yard and out at the range, over the last 12 months, it's actually held up really well. I mean, the blade is definitely holding in there. It holds its edge well. I've only to resharpen it a couple times. No corrosion, even though it's been used to dig around in the dirt out back and cut through branches. You know, it is just a really cool little knife. So one of those things to consider putting in your collection if you don't have one. So there you go, guys, the G81. This is my favorite Glock. So there you go. All right, guys, so I want to thank you for joining us today. Thanks for hanging out. Like I said, you know, knife reviews, you'll see more and more of these as time goes on, but I'm not a pro knife reviewer by any stretch. But I want to just kind of thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see, please like or subscribe. You can check me out on gunchannels.com. You can also find me over on Caliber Corner. Over there on gunchannels.com. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all over the place. The links are in the description box for this video. Otherwise, guys, I think that's about it, and we'll let you know if anything major happens to this. Oh, the fixed point, the blade itself is simply bolted into the handle at the bottom. A lot of guys want to know if the blade goes, you know, the full length of the handle. It just goes in a slight distance, and then it's got a nut on the end of it that keeps it into place. So that is basically how the design works. So anyway, there you have it, guys. Thanks for joining us, guys. I want you to have fun. I want you to be safe, and as you know, we will talk to you soon. All right, guys, take care and have a great one. Bye-bye.